As a kid growing up in South Central, I enjoyed my time going to elementary school. While there, I did all my assignments, had fun playing during recess up to the moment the bell rang, and I even enjoyed the food served at lunch. On the day of my graduation there, my 6th grade teacher, Mrs. Davis, took a moment to smile and tell me that I was college material. After that, her smile slowly faded away and stated, "But up next is middle school. Get ready for Bethune." She referred to the middle school on Main and 69th. I remember feeling really nervous on the morning of my first day of school. I sat there in homeroom when the speaker came to life. A girl's voice welcomed us back to school, especially the incoming freshman class. Everything was going well until morning recess. As I sat at one of the tables by myself, a boy sat across from me and politely said hi. He recognized me from second period algebra class. After a brief introduction and a shake of hands, I noticed that he kept fidgeting while constantly looking over his shoulders. "Hey, what's wrong?" I asked. He ignored my question as he kept looking around. After repeating my question, he finally looked at me. "Look, I have an older brother who is now at high school over at Fremont. He used to come here." He hesitated. "Don't be dramatic, just say it," I whispered. "I'm sure it's nothing, but my brother said that every year, the 8th graders make the 7th grade scrubs feel welcomed by beating them after school, and that some kids even end up being shoved inside garbage cans." I kept looking at him, hoping he would smile and announce that he was joking around, but he was dead serious. "Yeah, we're gonna get them scrubs after school ends." I looked and noticed a table full of bigger guys just laughing after one of them revealed their plans out loud. Crap. Talk about surviving the first day of school. Literally. I ended up back to homeroom after 6th period on the 2nd floor, while the 8th graders were on the 3rd floor of the admin building. As 3 p.m. approached, me and a handful of other boys were nudging closer to the door. Of course, the girls were chilling in their seats. They knew they were safe. As the bell rang, we all busted out of the room and stampeded towards the stairs. As I was heading down the stairs, I heard loud footsteps from above while hearing, "Scrubs! Scrubs!" As soon as I exited the building, I bolted past the exit door, which was thankfully already open. To my horror, there was some tall, chunky mountain of a boy chasing me. After looking back once, I ran on the sidewalk before running across the street towards Main Street. I may have been chubby back then, but on that day, I had no problem sprinting like a track star. After running for a couple of blocks, I looked back to no one chasing me. I finally stopped near the corner of Florence and Main. After I got home, Mom asked me how my first day went. I told her that everything went as planned. I'll never forget that day. I'm glad I made it back home safely, because I had no interest in ending up inside a garbage can. By the time I was in high school, my 2 younger brothers attended the middle school I used to go to. Growing up in South Central, I would see a lot of things. As a kid, my brothers and I would walk 5 blocks just to buy basketball cards from a liquor shop. When the riots came around, a lot of local businesses, including the shop where I used to get my baseball cards, were burned to the ground. The high school I attended the first 2 years was dangerous, even during the day. I remember waiting to get picked up after school. I got tired of waiting, so I walked towards the building behind some bushes and leaned against the wall. There was also another boy waiting on the corner of the block near me. It was then that 2 tall guys approached him, smiling. They must have been between the ages of 18 and 20. One of them pointed at the boy's shoes and mentioned how nice they were. As the boy started backing away, the same guy quickly punched him in the stomach. The other one grabbed him from behind while the first guy was taking off the boy's shoes. They must have been Jordans. I looked down towards my own shoes and was so glad my mom would get me Pro Wings from Payless. Even so, I casually walked further into the street away from the corner. From then on, I would walk over to the middle school to meet up with my brothers so we could be picked up together. On a particular day, Mom was running late. I settled on the steps near the school entrance while my brothers were chatting with some friends on a grassy side nearby. After 10-15 minutes, there were 3 boys walking on the sidewalk from the right side of me. They couldn't have been older than 12. The boys wore baggy and saggy dark clothes, and the one in the middle was the shortest. As they were coming up near the steps, the short boy quickly came up the stairs and started frisking me, whispering, "Where's the money?" As soon as I stood up and took a step back, the boy punched me on the side of my left eye. After a momentary flash, I was facing the ground with blood quickly dripping down. Indeed, I felt the ring on his finger as it struck me. Seeing all the blood, the trio casually walked away. After a minute of me trying to stop the bleeding, I noticed my brothers slowly approaching me. One of their friends went to notify the staff inside the school. After a short while, I was at the nurse's office with an ice pack on my face. My mom was horrified to see my swollen face. A school police officer asked me to describe them. We went outside towards the sidewalk and see if they were still around, but they were gone. The tough guys were smart enough to get the hell out of there. The officer shook his head and mentioned how these type of incidents rarely happened. Annoyed, I looked at the officer. "Well, it happened to me, and I don't get why. I wasn't looking for trouble." Years later, I still have a small scar on my left eyebrow. Every time I notice that scar, I remember how that small kid wanted to take me for my money. He would have been disappointed because I had nothing on me. I'm just glad my brothers were spared from possibly getting mugged. My time in middle school spanned 2 years before moving on to high school. Funny enough, I started getting used to going to that dreary school and felt a little sad leaving it already. By the time I reached the end of middle school, my family and I moved away from the area to another school district zone. Based on my new address, I was supposed to attend HP High. But since all my friends went to Fremont, I had to convince Mom to allow me to go there. In turn, she had to convince my former neighbor from our old house to keep our correspondence and give them to us. I enjoyed the summer after middle school and looked forward to my new school. On the morning of the first day of school, I was all smiles on my way there. But as soon as I arrived, my smile faded away. That school looked like a detention facility. Almost as if done on purpose, the cloudy weather made the place look even more sad. I took AP Biology in my freshman year. There, I met and befriended a sophomore by the name of Gus. What I remember about him was that he would always wear dark clothing. He liked listening to music where he would have his Walkman on in and out of class. Gus would tell me what to expect from high school life. But of course, during lunch, he would hang out with his sophomore friends, but would be available after school. He told me that the tennis court, which was near the track field, would always be open after school. Luckily, I had a pair of rackets along with a bunch of tennis balls at home. One day, I brought them and kept the items in my backpack. Once after school came around, we met at the court. I remember watching tennis on TV where the players would sprint trying to hit the ball back. The expectation was that we would have to do the same. Well, every time I hit the ball on Gus's side, he never tried to run after the ball. If the ball was close enough, he would do a half-hearted lunge towards it. He once even threw his racket towards the ball and was happy that it made contact. We had fun all the same where we talked about lots of things. He did tell me that he wanted to open his own bar when he grew up. We were even discussing what name he should use for his business. I suggested Gus's Love Shack. He loved the name and decided to use that name for his bar. As we were sharing a laugh over the name choice, 3 teenagers in dark clothing approached us. One was looking up at the gate already wanting to scale it. Another was whistling wanting to get our attention. And the third guy yelled asking where we were from. Gus sighed as he whispered for me to ignore them. I turned my back to them as I began to bounce the ball upward with the racket. "Hey!" yelled one with a black t-shirt and dark blue jeans. I quickly turned around to see them. At that point, all 3 of them were staring at us while their hands were latched onto the gate, as if they were ready to climb the fence. "Stay behind me," Gus calmly stated. "Where you from, Holmes?" "I'm from Earth. Now get the fuck out of here," Gus quickly shot back. Just when I was about to chuckle, the guy dressed completely in black kicked the fence and yelled out a slew of choice words towards us. I was ready to run, but Gus stood his ground while firmly gripping the tennis racket. As they began to scale the fence, a police car drove by slowly and stopped in front of the 3 guys. While I couldn't hear what was being said, the 3 guys quickly started walking away in the opposite direction of the police car. At Gus' insistence, we stayed another 30 minutes before we called it a day. Mom was already waiting near the front of the school. I offered to give Gus a lift back to his place, but he opted to walk home. We played tennis after school several times during my sophomore year, up until I transferred to another high school before junior year. I'll never forget Gus's courage. He was a laid-back kind of guy, content with listening to music. After 20 years, I still think about this incident and how he stood up for me. I hope he's doing well, and that he got to open his Love Shack bar.